everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Fitness Education Series produced by the Australian Fitness Academy. It's like progressive overload for your brain. I'm your host, Tom Rock, and we've got Steph here today.
Hello, everyone.
Steph's back. Steph's loving the podcast.
I am,
which is
yeah,
good.
on the podcast bandwagon.
Yep, she's right on it. We got a good episode today. So this topic has come from one of our just finished Cert 4 students, Chrissy. So thanks for your email, Chrissy, and getting in touch. Great question and really good topic to bring Steph in on. I think she's got a bit of experience in this area. So quick background. So Chrissy's emailed in. She's finished her Cert 4. She's currently working with some NDIS clients, which is a great space to be in. Again, we'll sort of talk about these clients as high-risk clients, which a lot of them will be in terms of just their needs for exercise and how to do it safely. So we won't go into specifics about one specific client that she sort of mentioned, but as broadly, she's talked about a client that has had a stroke and has some paralysis on one side of his body or their body. And she's just sort of talking about finding ways to challenge him while keeping it safe and within scope of practice, and I guess trying to meet his needs, because it seems like he's coming across and they want to be challenged and they want to be pushed, but also wanting to do it in a safe way that is within her scope of practice and keep the client in a safe way. So yeah, I think it's a good topic to discuss, because there's lots of high-risk clients out there that you'll potentially work with, because generally there's a lot of clients out there looking to improve their fitness or get healthy that potentially have challenges. So maybe a quick background on Steph of just roughly on how you've got in this space and what you've done in it.
Yeah, so it was never sort of a space I specifically intended to work in. It just sort of happened with working with people, and as they aged and or they referred me to their parents.
Yep.
And helped their parents. So it was a matter of keeping people, especially because I went to people's homes, so keeping people mobile and not having to go out to the gyms and things like that. So it was really quite inclusive for them and accessible.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I think older adults is a great example of a high-risk population that we work with quite regularly and can work with. And yeah, it's one of the ones you potentially don't go in thinking you're going to work with, but then you realise they're the ones that also need a lot of assistance or potentially get a lot of benefit out of it too. So
very rewarding.
Absolutely, super rewarding, and you'll probably find that, and sometimes you might gravitate towards eventually because you're like, well, I can help all these people, and you do get a kick out of seeing all the benefit and improving their quality of life, I think. So yeah, definitely keep that in mind once you get into the industry. But it is an interesting space, and I guess, would you say over the years and you develop a lot of skills on the job in terms of finding new activities or finding interesting ways to keep them active or get them?
Yeah, at the beginning, it was a matter of working with what their allied health professionals had supplied.
Yep.
So what the exercises, either the physio or the exercise physiologist had recommended.
Yep.
And then I was there on the regular basis to reinforce that, make sure it was done correctly, safely, to make sure it was done on their own as well between sessions with the other allied health professionals.
Yep.
So I started to learn from what was being programmed by the allied health professionals as to what are suitable activities and exercises for certain high-risk clients and certain conditions.
Yep.
And then that's where you sort of build your repertoire of what you can work with.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. So that's probably a great point, Chrissy, if you're listening, or anyone else out there working with these type of clients or getting into it, is ideally, and you probably should in terms of scope of practice, be working in conjunction with an allied health professional, such as a exercise physiologist or a physio, like you mentioned, Steph, as they're going to help guide you with what is safe and potentially what isn't safe, or what to avoid with these high-risk populations, because each condition will be different, each client will be different, so they'll have a good understanding of what you should and shouldn't do. And I think it's something that some personal trainers don't get into straight away is, oh, well, I don't want to collaborate, or what, that's their client, I don't want to sort of share client with them, but you'll actually get the most out of it for the client, your client, and it'll benefit you as well. So as sort of Steph alluded to, you'll learn from what the exercise physiologist has implemented. They'll give you their plan, and then you can start to build your repertoire, like you said, of exercises and activities to help, whether it's older adults or other sort of high-risk clients, in their in their exercise and health
their
journey, I
goals.
guess.
Yeah, and then you build a really good relationship with those allied health professionals.
Yep.
And you've got that network to either then refer on clients that you have that you might need more support with, and or then they know that you're a really good PT because you're working with them.
Yep.
So then if they get a new client, they might be likely to refer them to you for that maintenance of their exercise.
Absolutely. I think that's a really great benefit. I've talked about it previously, I think, with dietitians and how building good relationships with dietitians can be good for referrals, both forward and backwards. But the same thing with allied health professionals, because physios will have clients that they sort of managing, but potentially don't need to manage 2 or 3 times a week. If they can send them to the personal trainer to help implement the program, the physio doesn't have to see them as often. So that can be, helpful.
Yeah.
Sure.
There was a course quite a while ago. There'll be something more modern now, but it was exercise, chair-based exercise.
Yep.
So those sort of courses could also introduce you to lateral thinking of ways for clients to move when they are stable and stationary in a chair, so they're safer.
Yeah.
So you're not worrying about the falls and balances and balance problems and tripping problems. So doing courses like that will again build your repertoire of ideas of things you can do in a safe, stable manner.
Yeah, that's really cool. I think short course is a good option. I think there's so many exercises out there that you sort of forget about or don't apply regularly.
Yep.
Especially if whether you're new in the industry or if you're just sort of got a new client that's potentially different to other clients you've had. I remember, like, this is not really high risk, but I sort of my first older client who was just there to reduce back pain and just get more mobile and improve quality of life. Well, he doesn't need to do bicep curls at the end of a session. Like, it's just a waste of time. So it makes me as a trainer, it's enjoyable because I get to think, well, what exercise is actually going to be beneficial? So fit the exercises to their goals, not sort of just apply general exercise to everybody, is a really good way to think about it. But
Definitely.
yeah, as you've said, these clients need even slightly regressed stuff, potentially.
Yeah.
So short courses are a great idea to get ideas, but yeah, bouncing off the allied health professionals, I think, is a really good one to go with. What other thoughts have we got?
There was comments about safe spaces and mobility. So
Yes.
really good to be aware that having support structures around. So if you are working with someone who might be at high risk for falls, regardless whether it might be an injury, it might be, a young person rehabilitating from a knee reconstruction, there's still high risk of fall. It might be an older adult. It might be a stroke client. It might be, I had a client who had vertigo.
Oh, well, yeah.
Yep. So we had to be really careful and make sure the vertigo client, we exercised in her kitchen because the kitchen bench was quite big and stable. So we always could have a hand or both hands or be able to put a hand or both hands on that kitchen bench.
Yep.
She had a very big kitchen. So don't do a pokey kitchen. So Chrissy had mentioned here that there's some support bars in an outdoor park. So that would be really good for that stability.
Yep.
So thinking about having safe, strong structures around for any clients who might be at a high risk of falls or tripping. Or tripping is different. You want to make sure the floor is safe. But yeah, thinking about what your surroundings are. And then that could lead to the floor and tripping and steps and accessibility.
Yep.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, safety is probably another thing you have to consider, whether it's in the gym or outdoors or wherever you're training them. Super, super important, especially for this high-risk population. So yeah, I think, and then she sort of went into like trying to challenge them. I think that's a really interesting point because you do want to challenge them and make things fun. But that's where I think you lean on the physios or the exercise physiologists to sort of prompt you with ideas, or get some sessions under your belt with some basic stuff and then keep track of how they're doing, and then go to the physio or the exercise physiologist with an idea and say, hi, if I did this, would this be safe?
Absolutely.
Or would this be okay? And let them guide you whether it's good thing or bad thing. And yeah, I think that's a really good way to go about it, rather than just go, I'll implement it and see how it goes.
Yeah.
Lean on the physios or allied health professionals to sort of bounce your ideas off and then slowly implement it.
Definitely. Yeah. And if you're thinking you want to make it creative and engaging, if you think about coming back to that safety aspect, if you've got your client sitting in a chair and you want to move their arms, it might be a keep the balloon up in the air.
Yep.
So it's a bit of a laugh. It's a bit engaging. It's creative, but it's a safe activity where they might just be tapping the balloon in the air or tapping the balloon to you and back and forth, because we wanted to make sure that the hands were moving independently for this example.
Yeah, very cool. Very cool.
It's still safe. It may not have been prescribed by the allied health professional, but you've done a safety analysis, a risk analysis, and it's creative but still safe.
Yeah, so play around with lots of those little fun activities, I think, to keep it engaging. But yeah, anytime you're trying to advance an exercise or move it to something unstable or potentially high risk, make sure you sort of flag it with an allied health professional before you sort of attempt to implement it into a program, I think is very smart.
Yes.
But yeah, in terms of coming up with ideas, that's where I think the short courses, like you mentioned, the internet, obviously I don't like to encourage just jumping on Google and finding activities. But yeah, generally get ideas from other trainers and allied health professionals rather than sort of the general internet. Or if you see something online and you think it applies, definitely run it past an allied health professional before you go, oh, I saw that on Instagram, I'm just going to do it with my client on the weekend.
Yeah.
Is probably a good idea.
Yeah. Always consider the why am I doing this, and then the safety of it. And is it within my scope of practice?
Yeah, scope practice is a big one. And there's a lot of grey areas, I think, but definitely err on the side of I'll chat to the allied health professional. And generally the good thing with most of these high-risk clients is they'll be regularly in contact with their GPs at a minimum, if not a physio or someone else. And if they're not, definitely recommend them getting in touch. Or and once you start to build out a referral base, you'll probably have physios or EPs that you go, if you're not seeing one, I know someone who you can go see, and they're generally good to build a rapport with.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, hopefully that gives you some ideas, Chrissy. We probably didn't give you all the answers, but the answers are out there, I think, and it's going to be different depending on any specific client that you're working with. But yeah, lean on other allied health professionals, I think, for ideas and how to implement programs, because they'll definitely help. They'll have lots of ideas, and then your experience will grow with that.
Yeah, I think that's perfect.
Awesome. Well, thanks for jumping on, Steph.
My pleasure.
Excellent. If anyone else has any other questions or topics they'd like me or Steph or any of the team to answer or jump on and discuss or talk about, happy to cover anything, guys. So send an email to tom@afa.com.au and happy to discuss any topics or questions you have. Other than that, guys, have a great weekend and I'll talk to you all soon.